Toronto's most beloved neighborhood is changing fast. Long-standing businesses are closing, beloved events are disappearing, and honestly, the vibe just kind of feels different. So today, I want to talk about what is happening to Kensington Market and why it matters. Kensington Market has always been a bit chaotic, but in the best way. If you're not familiar with it, Kensington Market is a small neighborhood located just west of Chinatown, right next to Chinatown, and it's bordered by Spadina to the east, and then goes all the way to the west to Bathurst, and then its north-south border is College and Dundas. Most of the shops and stuff end at Augusta Ave, and then it's kind of just homes after that. It's right in the heart of downtown Toronto, but it feels like a completely different area and its own city in a way. There's no big box stores, no chain restaurants, just narrow streets filled with murals, graffiti, music, and food. The roots of the area go all the way back to the 1800s, when, like most of Toronto, it was a working class area for immigrants that were British and Irish. Then came the early waves of immigration in the early 1900s, mainly Jewish families coming over, and they turned Kensington into the market that it was really, with pushcart shops, produce stands, egg stands, meat stands, and selling all kinds of goods. Then around the 1960s kind of came the modern day immigration that we see today. Portuguese, Caribbean, Latin American, Chinese, Vietnamese, and so many other layers were added to the area. And with that, they brought their own culture, food, and identity, and you can see that in the storefronts all around the area. It's one of the few places in Toronto where you can walk down a single block and feel like you went through 5 different countries. And it's not just commercial spaces. A lot of people live here too, above the shops, but also, like I said, west of Augusta Ave, and then on some of the side streets, there are plenty of houses. Most of them have become multi-unit homes and are homes to lots of tenants. And a few are owner-occupied by people who have been here since the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In 2006, Kensington was then designated as a National Historic Site, and not because of its architecture, but actually because of its cultural and historical significance. It's one of the most diverse and organically formed neighborhoods in the country. But just because something's iconic doesn't mean it can't change, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Kensington has always had a high turnover rate. A new shop is always closing and a new one is always opening. That's just kind of been the nature of the beast. But recently an article was published that kind of inspired me to make this video, and that was the closure of Hooked, a fishmonger who's been in the area for 13 years now and is now closing their doors. Now, some people would say that Hooked closing isn't anything special, that it was too expensive anyways for the area, not affordable for everyday shopping, and that these kind of shops aren't for the community. And I get that perspective, but at the same time, they did survive in the area for over a decade, which says something. That means they were definitely loved by locals in the area and people who shopped here. And some people would argue that high-end specialty retailers were part of the problem in the first place and are a reason that there's rapid gentrification in the area, and they're part of that gentrification. I don't fully disagree, but I also don't think that it's that simple. Kensington has always had a mix of offerings, from affordable produce stands to higher-end specialty retailers like high-end butchers and fishmongers, or high-end bakeries, and there are also the affordable alternatives at the same time. And then when you start to lose those higher quality independent shops, you're left with what we see now: tourist-oriented spots, dispensaries, bars, and places that just don't really serve the everyday need for residents. And as you can see, serving residents is a pretty important part. Every building that I go by in the background here, and even going this way, they're all houses, so tons of people live here. So serving the needs of residents is important. You don't want residents to have to leave their neighborhood to get things that they need. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of a neighborhood, right? And losing those kind of retailers is a big hit to local residents and people who just loved Kensington, because for a lot of them, that's what Kensington was all about. It was a place where you could live, shop, and be part of a much bigger community. When that starts to disappear, then locals feel pushed out, and it just becomes a less desirable place to live for some people. I also think it's worth talking about the bigger trend here. Oh, hello, little black cat. I've made a friend. See, Kensington is just a place of all places. You never know what you'll find, and maybe you'll even see the neighborhood cat. But back to talking about the bigger trend that I mentioned, the decline of fresh food shopping across the city. Kensington Market used to be a hub for fresh produce. That was its whole purpose as a market. Just check out some of the photos I have here from the 60s and the 70s. But now Kensington has just one green grocer left, the Kensington Fruit Market, which is right behind me. The decline of grocers really began in the 90s and early 2000s, but in the last decade, it's really accelerated. In 2016, Zimmerman's Fresh Mart closed after 24 years in business. Casa Soriana shut its doors in 2018 after 55 years. Oxford Fruit then closed in 2020 after 40 years. Sunwa Fruit Market closed in 2021 after 27 years, and that same year, Castle Fruit was converted into a cannabis store by its owners. So that's 6 green grocers in 2016, down to just 1 by 2021. Now, this isn't just a Kensington story. You see the same thing happening at St. Lawrence Market, Locals Farmers Markets, and just across different neighborhoods in the city. People just aren't buying groceries the way that they used to. They're ordering in, eating out, and vendors have had to adjust. A good example of this is a farmer's market that I visit regularly is Underpass. They now have 4 alcohol vendors and just as many produce vendors out of 50 vendors in total for the farmer's market. And the rest is all prepared food. So calling it farmer's market feels like a bit of a stretch when about 7 out of 50 vendors are actual farms. And the same goes for Cabbagetown's market, another farmer's market in the area. Last time I had gone there in early June, there was just 1 produce vendor. And then at St. Lawrence Market, for example, you're seeing fewer and fewer people with grocery bags in their hand and more with sandwiches and pastries in their hand instead. And this has been long talked about. It's no secret that this is a trend that's happening. And I'm not saying that Kensington is comparable to St. Lawrence Market or farmers markets. I just want to show you the trends that I've been seeing and how that trend could be playing a role in some of the changes that we're seeing at Kensington Market. So Kensington's change isn't just about 1 fish shop closing. There are 2 more within 100 meters. But it can be said that it's part of a wider shift in how people eat and how they shop, and even what they want out of a neighborhood. Another change is Pedestrian Sundays. If you've lived in Toronto long enough, you know how big of a deal they were in Kensington Market. Once a month, from May to October, Kensington would go fully car-free. So these streets that you see behind me would be entirely closed and packed with pedestrians and different vendors. Each storefront could then have their store spill out onto the streets in front of them. It was basically like a monthly street festival combined with a farmer's market in a way. But for 2025, the Kensington BIA has put a pause on Pedestrian Sundays. Their main reasoning being an influx of unpermitted and outside vendors. Now, this definitely was an issue. There was basically just random people selling random stuff in the end. You could just have some random dude off the street come in, bring a barbecue, and start barbecuing meat from who knows when. And he'd be selling it and doesn't have a business license or a health inspection. People then saw this and started pushing their luck more and more. And on Pedestrian Sundays now, you would have unlicensed dispensaries selling all kinds of different things on the streets. And that just wasn't something that was safe or that the Kensington BIA wanted to be associated with. Now, could the Kensington BIA have had one meeting over the winter and brainstormed and thought that maybe they should have Toronto Public Health and Toronto bylaw officers patrolling the streets during Pedestrian Sundays? Sure, and maybe they did, but they're citing this as their main reasoning for not having Pedestrian Sundays anymore. So for whatever reason, they could not find a solution. Putting a pause on Pedestrian Sundays, and without Pedestrian Sundays, the community loses a major source of foot traffic and a huge sense of community. Now, there's a lot of advocacy for saving Kensington Market. And you may be wondering, why does it need saving? Can't you just recreate this? Well, actually, Toronto's current zoning and bylaw rules just don't make it even feasibly possible to create something like another Kensington Market. So if, and I think I should say more so when rather than if, so when we lose Kensington Market, it'll be gone forever and there won't be anything else like it ever again. There's also local efforts like the Kensington Market Community Land Trust, where they buy up residential properties to make sure that they can't be bought by other people for land assemblies and to develop. And this way they also keep housing affordable by being able to charge less than market rent. That's real community ownership, and that's something you rarely ever see. So that really shows you how caring the community and the local residents of the Kensington Market are and how much they want to keep this neighborhood alive. But change is happening. Rents go up, longtime residents and businesses leave the area, tourists come in, bars and dispensaries replace grocery stores, and some people definitely love that energy, and others feel like the market loses more and more of its soul every year. Now, I'm a realtor, and the premise of my channel has obviously been real estate and neighborhoods. So let's talk about that. When a neighborhood changes, so does its desirability. For some people, Kensington is much less desirable than it ever was. For others, it's the most desirable it's ever been. It really is just all about who the neighborhood is serving. These types of shifts impact the types of buyers, renters, investors that the area attracts. And over time, that then changes what gets built, what disappears, and what changes really. So it isn't just about vibe or nostalgia, which is easy to get caught up in, but it's more about the real structure of our city. Now here's what I hope we don't forget. Neighborhoods actually work best when they serve the people who live in them. When you can walk outside, get your groceries, support local shops, feel safe, and you see yourself and the community in the street life around you. That version of Kensington is definitely harder to find now, but it's not impossible to protect if we care enough about doing so. So to answer the question of what is happening to Kensington Market, well, the answer is that it's changing. And depending on who you are, that change may feel exciting or heartbreaking. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on Kensington Market. It's a bit of a mix mash of what I normally do. I've always wanted to do a neighborhood video on Kensington Market as part of my neighborhood tours, and I feel like this kind of checks off that box. Leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are on modern day Kensington Market, and if you have any memories of the older Kensington Market and how it used to be, and what you think on the changes that are coming to the area. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share the video, because this is an interesting topic and others are probably really curious about what's happening in Kensington Market. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.